that this team likes to play around, and I feel like that they're just so good at doing it.
Yeah.
Outside of just Uzi and Ming's ability to build 2v2 leads, that like putting a priority on the Rakan and leaving things like the Leona open, I just feel like G2 should be a little bit more patient and wait to see what RNG tried to draft before then locking in their bot lane.
Well, already they are making some adaptations, taking away that Talia that was very, very effective in the first game, especially at attacking the bottom lane, walling them off and looking for those dives.
I also think that it funnels Karsa into either Gragas or Lee Sin. Those have really been the only other two champions that he's played in playoffs and so far at Worlds. And perhaps G2 have recognized that, hey, if we take him off this and put him on one of those champions, his impact can be slightly mitigated. But then lower impact, Karsa, Lee Sin, I don't know if you can really say those same things in the same sentence.
Well, Azael, you wanted to see the Aatrox and Urgot potentially banned away. They are, and near insta-lock Akali for G2 Esports. We know that this is a team that can flex that top or mid, so I'm interested to see how the rest of the draft plays out.
One of the things that is a bit concerning, though, is we have seen it be fairly ineffective into tanks. And if you draft Lissandra plus a tank, we know that Xiaohu can also play, you know, things like Sion mid, and you have the possibility of putting it in a matchup where it's tougher to snowball.
I also think that the advantage that Akali has is that you can flex it to both top and mid. And even though Lissandra has been locked in, very likely for Xiaohu, given that this used to be one of his big comfort picks when he first joined the pro scene, they also get themselves the other flex pick in Irelia as well. So G2 taking full utilization of the flexibility of Irelia and Akali, and will try to give the best possible matchup to either one.
And you can see that the blue side has already given them some more flexibility. Two of the bans from RNG in game number 1 are the first 2 picks for G2. Both Akali and Tahm Kench were taken away by RNG when they were on the blue side. They felt that they had to take away the Alistar and the Urgot for those first picks, and now G2 is going to get some of those picks that were so highly prioritized by RNG.
Now, I think that we're looking at a Jhin pick again for G2, so RNG should consider trying to take it off the board. There's also the possibility of something a little more safe, like the Sivir, but if you wanted to try and match the aggression, you'd be looking at champions like maybe Draven or Kalista, but naturally, when you look at Yanin, he's not the kind of player that picks those styles of champ.
And definitely not the one we were expecting coming into this series. You know, we talked a lot about Hyanin's play style, and one of the things that Jat said a few days ago that I really liked was how he sort of categorized Hyanin as a mage-style player, you know, with the Heimer, the Brand, the Jhin, as opposed to the likes of, you know, the Lucian, for example. The one thing I do want to just quickly comment, Tahm Kench, what did? It is his most played champion by far, 24 games played. Next is 15 on Alistar, and it is one of his big comfort picks, and the jungle pool has been hit. Nocturne, Lee Sin, Olaf.
And we're going to have to see here, is he going to be pushed outside of that kind of triumvirate of bot lane carries that you talked about? Because the Jhin is gone, the Heimer is gone. He could look to something like the Sivir, but it obviously plays fairly differently than some of these spellcasters. Brand would be available if they want to go that route, but we'll see if they're going to be willing to do that, because against the Rakan and the Lucian, if you miss any of those skill shots, if your stun gets dashed, certainly is the potential to all in.
I see as well the RNG going for an aggressive early game. We talked a little bit about Karsa. He typically has played the Gragas outside of the Lee Sin or Talia, but he's adding Xin Zhao there as well. Not really that surprising. And I think that it facilitates as well an ability to play around the bot side of the map. And what we talked about last game was G2 need to try and limit Xiaohu's ability to roam towards the bot side, along with denying RNG a strong 2 versus 2. So far, RNG have the strong 2 versus 2. They have a Lissandra for roaming, and they've got Karsa on an early game playmaker as well. So I feel like RNG drafting in a very similar style to what we saw in game 1.
Yeah, they certainly are. A bit less of a front line, but
yes,
you know, we'll see how that's actually going to play into G2, which who very clearly, again, is going for 1-3-1. I think the Varus does make quite a bit of sense. Strong laning AD, especially paired with the Tahm Kench, should be fairly safe against this Varus and Lucian. The Shen here, though, is going to be pretty interesting, because Shen does, again, enable very heavily more diving, more of the same style of play. And I want to point out, though, that G2, while they certainly are trying to play the style of lost kind of minimization in the bottom lane, Karden has been playing pretty well. You know, he has, I think, got some flack unfairly. You know, he is 3rd highest in DPM across the board at Worlds, has been performing quite well on picks such as the Jhin and some others as well.
And this is his first Varus, by the way, on the World Championship stage. And as we've mentioned, parties in the bot lane, pressure on him and Wadid to perform this game.
And it was a champion that he played fairly regularly during the regular season, so he is pretty familiar with the champion as well. We'll see how he holds out up against Uzi and Ming, who have been known to be very dominant in the 2 versus 2, but we're also seeing the Aurelia in the mid lane for Perks going up against Zhao, who's Lissandra, and Wonder on this Akali. Slightly better matchups for the Akali and the Aurelia, but still, a lot of RNG's playstyle is their ability to teamfight and play around the bot side of the map.
Well, you touched on it. G2 Esports played with that Varus a lot during the regular season. G2 are now, again, finding themselves in a position where they got 2 of their comfort picks, the Irelia, the Akali. Perks and Wonder, what can they do with it? It will be Akali in the top lane with Wonder going into Let Me Shen. And Perks will be running that Irelia in the mid lane, going up against Shao Ku's Lissandra.
And now, again, expectations are pretty much identical to last time around. Perks and Wonder want to get ahead. They want to be set up to be able to split push and play that 1-through-1 style. Whereas for RNG, they want to try and break that top bot tower as early as possible. They want to play through Uzi. We're going to see a lot of Zhao who roams. We're going to see a lot of Let Me ultimates. And we're basically going to see, again, Uzi trying to carry this team.
Yeah, and I want to see whether or not Uzi's counterpart Hyanin can actually put up a fight, because we're going to talk a lot about RNG as this tournament continues to play out, and they are the expected favorites this series. 6 consecutive finals, they finally won them this year. G2 made 5 consecutive finals, won 4 of them. They faltered in spring, they fell in the quarterfinals of summer, and they had to run through the regional qualifier. Then they had to play in through the play-ins. And then they find themselves in a group where they actually step up and prove their 1-3-1 style does work on the world stage, and now they're going up against one of the world's best.
And it's so interesting to see that this team, who had been so regionally dominant for so long, always failed to get into groups at Worlds. And it's this iteration, the one that did not have as much regional success, the one that struggled, but did find its own identity, did find its own path to success. And I feel that that has been such a clear story over the years for the Western teams at Worlds, that you can't always just play standard and get out. When you look at teams like this for G2, very defined 1-3-1 style. When you look at C9 and the reason that they have had success, it's often been, again, about a defined style.
Play your game, as Captain Flowers would say, and has it. I've fallen in love with that catchphrase quite a lot, and Yamato gave an inspirational speech once Vitality were eliminated. Vitality themselves picked up a win against Royal Never Give Up during the group stages. And we're going to keep a close eye on the early laning and how Castle will impact it. Remember in the previous game with Talia, he got himself the double scuttle crab, and despite the fact that Jankos was able to pick up first blood, helping out Hyanin, unfortunately, the rest of the attention to the bottom lane favored RNG and allowed Royal Never Give Up just to accelerate that mid game in their favor.
So we talked a little bit about the 2v2 matchup earlier on, and to be fair, the one thing that I often very readily forget is how surprisingly powerful a Tahm Kench and a Varus lane actually is, largely because the range advantage the Varus has over so many other AD carries, combined with the just constant harassment and peel that a Tahm Kench provide, means that you can actually get pretty solid push in the laning phase. You can see if Hyanin's ever in danger, he gets taken to safety by that of Wadid. So already they're trying to put some pressure down onto Uzi and Ming, and they just have to be cautious of a potential early gank from Kasa.
And they've also got to be really careful about how you use those Devours now on the Tahm Kench, because on this patch, it is a very long cooldown, especially at rank 1. So if you use that very early on, they can look to attack you while that is down.
Yeah, and of course, it was a Tahm Kench nerf during the middle of the season that actually really hurt G2 Esports. Wadid was one of the prolific users of TK down in the bottom lane. And once that laning power started to struggle, it hurt them. You can see on this bottom lane, though, 12 CS to 13, slowly pushing towards Uzi and Ming. And Karsa, we caught a glimpse of him taking that second scuttle as well.
Yeah, it's also interesting to note that you do see double cleanse here on the side of G2, both Perks and Wadid taking that. Because there is this Lissandra, there is the Shenton, there's so much CC, you have to give that respect over to it. But it does make it harder for Perks to get that 1v1 kill that he really wants to try to find on Aurelia.
I also want to make a quick note of the ward that Jankos just put down. You'll see that there's a control ward just outside of the red buff, but there was no jungle camps for him to clear around the bot side of the map. And the reason for this is with a big minion wave pushing in, he wanted to make sure that Kasa didn't come into the bot side jungle unseen. But he just cleared out a ward, and now he's setting it for a potential dive.
Yeah, and even if they don't go for this dive, at the very least, they may be able to zone G2 off of the wave. We'll see if they commit to it. Jankos is coming.
The Devour needs to be perfect. Manages to gobble up Hyanin. This buys some time. Uzi takes a tower shot, and Xiaohu commits and completes the teleport. This is a 4 versus 3. I don't think there's a risk of a dive with Xiaohu backing away. G2 read the play, read the dive, and defended perfectly.
And what a surprise. RNG tried to play around bot lane. They commit 4 members down there. Xiaohu once again at level 4, using his teleport to try and find some early kills. Results in RNG just getting a slight pressure advantage down towards the bot side of the map and starting to build that CS lead.
Yeah, but this is really good. I would say the trade is certainly worthwhile as Perks. Not only does he establish a CS advantage and push in, as they're going for Hjarnan.
Ooh, Ming jumps in. If he got that knock-up, it may have worked. Hjarnan's summon a heal will keep him alive through the Ignite, but RNG already up 11 CS. They push Hjarnan out of the wave. And this is, again, rinse and repeat like a previous game.
Yeah, that last trade does make it pretty rough because it had been, fairly even as far as the CS advantages and disadvantages in mid compared to bot. And the TP was down for Xiaohu, but now that Varus is sent back to base early without a really strong buy, and RNG get a free reset, it does get a lot tougher.
Naturally, it's really hard for Hjarnan too. Like, what are you supposed to do when 4 people show up in your bot lane at like level 4?
Yeah.
It's a really difficult thing to deal with. And once again, it looks like Jankos is taking on the approach of, I'm going to try and stem the bleeding. But at level 6 in mid lane and top lane, I would like to see Jankos trying to get either Wonder or Perks ahead, because this was something that we didn't see from him last game. And while Wonder and Perks did very well in terms of their isolated 1v1, their leads weren't big enough to be able to threaten what RNG were doing and setting up elsewhere on the map.
Well, unlike the previous game, Vedius, Jankos was in range to respond to the first roam down bot. So a little bit of adaptation and growth here on the side of G2. Wadid's even going to steal away the scuttle with a little bit of...
for the cameras, boys.
I actually love that. Wadid, of course, has been playing in the ULCS for a while, and he's been the duo of Hjarnan for a very long time. And going back to last year, one of the things that Wadid talked about was he just didn't want to be another Korean. He's going to need to save his AD carry, spits out Hjarnan, who takes so much damage from Ming's engage. And for Wadid, playing in front of his home crowd, there's a lot on the line. And Casa, once again, just showing this isn't a 2v2.
Yahoo as well.
This is a 3v2, 4v2, 5v2. If RNG could put a Rift Herald to do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the important thing here for RNG is even if you can't dive, if you're pushing them off of farm, you're creating a bigger and bigger advantage. You can see Hjarnan falling quite far behind in the CS, but it's been a good job by G2 to at least absorb the pressure and not give up the kills.
We've also got to acknowledge that Hjarnan and Wadid in that situation, taking a couple of unfavorable trades. Lucian utilizing his mobility to kind of get in close with Hjarnan, avoid Wadid, and kind of take these small chip trades is forcing Hjarnan low, getting him underneath his tower in a situation that allows RNG to create these dives.
Another thing I want to talk about a little bit is the fact that G2, as we may see a solo kill here, let's see.
Oh, there's a stun. Where's the ulti from Perks? He's holding on to it for now. And Xiaohu just uses the claw to get out alive.
But these are solo laners now for G2 that I think come online a lot earlier. Both of them, as soon as you hit 6, have kill pressure. And I think there's more pressure from the Aurelia and the Akali early on than there is from last game coming out of the Ryze and the Aatrox. So if RNG tries to force G2 to group up and fight, I think there's more potential for G2 to get onto Uzi and take him out.
Yeah, you can see that in the CS numbers there, Azael. 62 to 51 in favor of Wonder versus Let Me. 74 to 53 in favor of Perks over Xiaohu. Keep in mind that Xiaohu has roamed at least once, if I recall correctly, twice in fact. Yeah. But Uzi and Ming, they are doing work. Nearly double the CS advantage over Hjarnan and Wadid. A full culling into Tahm Kench by Wadid. And look, this tower's going to fall very, very shortly. 25 CS up. It's such a difficult scenario for G2 Esports.
Keep your eyes on Carson. He's just sitting in this brush,
waiting for the Shroud to expire.
Let's take a look. Wonder low in energy. There goes the Twilight Shroud.
He's still there.
Waiting for the engage.
Jankos
is
nearby.
Here
as well.
He's level 6 as well, Vedius. That's what you wanted to see. Here comes the dashes from Wonder. He's going to get taunted up. Jankos gets the body booped down. Starting to channel the Shen ulti as the barrel splits Casa and Let Me away. Wonder escapes by the skin of his teeth at the cost of the bottom tower.
And unfortunately for G2, they're not able to find anything in the top side, whereas RNG secured their first tower of the game even earlier than they did last time around. The bot lane is being shut down in favor of RNG, and then they're going to look to continue with this pressure.
All right, Jankos was threatening a dive. Costa still hasn't completed his recall.
This is
now,
risky.
Azael, the solo lanes for G2 are in a good position, but look at the duo. Uzi and Ming are already unlocked. They're already making their move. The flawless
Comes Xiaohu.
That's a good stun. Vanguard's edge bounces in, but Perkz is left alone. He's left to dive, manages to pick up first blood, traded back with Corsa. It's a 1-for-1 in the top lane.
Nice proactive play there from G2. Unfortunately, Perkz does go down, but they get first blood onto him, and he has the CS advantage in the mid lane, so maybe he can make something happen with this individual gold lead.
The RNG were very quick to make their way up towards the top side.
Yeah.
They saw the dive coming and they were ready to shut it down. If it weren't for Perkz' fancy feet and good outplay, that could have ended a lot worse for the side of G2, but RNG still sit with the gold lead, and Uzi already making his way towards the turret.
And this was always going to be a tough dive to make when there's no ult on Wonder, there's no ult on Yanko, so Letme goes back towards Yanko's trying to attack him, but Perkz hitting everything here, getting the resets, and even though Letme is able to get over the wall and flash out after the parry zone, Perkz just turns his attention onto Karsa.
Yeah, and Perkz so close to getting out with his life, but unfortunately he took one too many tower shots, one where Jankos was forced to flash out after getting aggro, and then obviously that second one at the very end there meant that he did lose his life. But having completed the Tiamat, now working towards the Trinity Force, as you mentioned earlier, Azel, things not all bad for the side of G2, as their solo laners are picking up a lot of farm and a lot of gold.
And of course, it's been Wonder and Perkz that have really stepped here on the World Championship stage. When you see the CS differences, we see Perkz get first blood. I'm a little more confident in Perkz' Irelia finding Uzi. And even if he can't kill Uzi, the threat alone, the zoning power, allows the 4 other members of G2 Esports to potentially win these skirmishes. So there are tools here, and that's before we even include Akali in the picture.
Yeah, exactly. I think that if RNG, when you look at this game state compared to last time, if they just try to walk over to Rift Herald and start that up, you can get contested. You can get taken down there. So certainly RNG is going to have to play this a lot more carefully. They do still have very good advantages here on their AD carry, but the rest of the map is going worse for them, and those members on G2 who are ahead have an easier time getting involved.
All right, Glacial Tomb's already been used onto Perkz. He's going to try get some damage reduction down. Corsa gets turned around. It's a 1-for-1. Both junglers picking up the kills, but Jankos being chunked down by those ice shards. And that's a flash forward from Xiaohu. Here comes the Abyssal Void. Jankos stays alive just long enough to get to Val, but I think the Ignite might tick him down. He survived! How did he survive? What did is now looking for Ming. Here comes Wonder on the Akali. He's 0-0-1. Gonna get gobbled up here by Ming. He flashes over the wall, or dashes over the wall is a little bit more correct. And Wonder will be helped out by what did. There's the blast cone here to safety. Ming's taking them on a wild goose chase.
He could get the execute.
Will it be long enough? That's the question. Execute, secured. That is a gigantic advantage, denying the goal to Wonder.
So that overall ends up being a 1-for-1, and while all of this has been going on, Uzi was pushing in the top lane. You saw Letme sitting in bot lane, freely farming up the farm that was unavailable to him earlier, and everything so far still in advantage towards RNG.
I think there's more playmaking potential on the side of G2. It's what we were talking about just before that play. You can see the power of the Irelia, the Akali, the Tahm Kench. The tools are there for G2 to wield to try and keep this game close. It's only 400 gold difference.
And I think importantly, the strong members have the playmaking tools, because there was playmaking obviously on Rakan and on the Gragas last game, but now your Fed members are the ones who get to pick their fights more easily. They're the ones who get to choose what fights they can win, which fights they can, and they're going to have the opportunity to try to take over this game.
And it's unfortunate that for Wonder he couldn't find that execute. If he had just been a little more patient with his ultimate, then he might have been able to find Ming, but Ming using his quick thinking to jump over into the red buff meant that Wonder had no more dashes to lock that one down. Now, RNG have their AD carry up towards the top side. They don't actually have pressure mid, so starting this is a little risky, along with the fact that Wonder has no teleport. Letme has both TP and ulti, so perhaps they're relying on that to start this objective off.
All right, so let's take a look as the two teams start to collapse. One of the things that we've not talked a huge amount about is Letme on the Shen. He's still down 40 CS in lane, having a little bit of a tough time as a lot of actions happen elsewhere on the map. But if G2 set up a 1-3-1, one of the best tools in the game in dealing with that is having that stand united, having the Shen available if and when needed. So for example, Xiaohu's under threat now. The Vanguard's edge comes out. Glacial Path used to safety. Had Xiaohu gone any lower, with no flash, no hourglass, Let Me could have been called in for some support, get stunned up, and that cooldown, that window of opportunity is also something G2 have to factor into the decision making.
Yeah, it definitely is. And you know, when you're looking towards the Shen versus the Akali matchup, you want to see Wonder, do more than just establish a CS advantage. Now that he's on Gunblade, he should really be able to bully this matchup, and you want to see him trying to turn it into a turret or a kill or something.
Well, there's the Tom Kench. It's been unbenched. Yankos with a flash body slam. We'll look for Xiaohu. Now keep your eyes on Ming. If he gets a good knockup, there could be some follow-up, but there's not. 4 members of G2 collapse, they get the kill.
Love the use of the Tom Kench ultimate there to set up a collapse onto Zhao, who has just been constantly pressured by Perks in the middle lane. They're able to find themselves a kill at last after the no flash and no Zhonya's, but we keep flicking over to these side lanes. Every time G2 tried to make a play, Uzi is getting more gold, more farm, and more pressure.
He's pretty much been playing PvE for the last 10 minutes.
He does that a lot.
He will get to the point where he is the raid boss, and then we see whether or not G2 can take him down.
So we're going to have a look back at how this play kicked off. You can see on the minimap that Tom Kench had already set up the flank ready. They decided to just abandon the top lane tower, and they figured, hey, if we get a kill onto mid, maybe we can convert this into either a mid tower or a rift tower. And as we say that, here's that rift tower.
All right, rift tower just about to be secured.
RNG though.
Man that's been charmed up, knocked down. Rift tower is secured, but at the cost of Wadid's life. Now it's a 4 versus 5, and that stand united from Let Me was monumental. A flash forward will not be enough to secure the kill yet until the rest of RNG collapse. So Rift Herald picked up, but at the cost of 2.
Yeah, but you can see G2 able to at least dictate the pace of the game somewhat. They're the ones starting up the neutral objective. They do lose a kill here, but at least they got the Rift Herald and can try to trade that later for a tower.
But I think that overall, the fact that Uzi finds himself another kill, the fact that both the teleport from Wonder was used along with both summoners on Shannon, means that I feel that this allows RNG to generate a lot more pressure on the map because they still have double teleport. He only had to use his ultimate rather than that global, and they can now better collapse on these side lanes, as we can see. Xiaohu, he decided to move away and not go for it.
Remember, summoner spell less Varus? Yeah. I was just like, well, that's going to be a dead 80 carry. Not this time around.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't know where the rest of the G2 members were, so was a little bit afraid to go for it. Had he been able to see the map as we do, I think that would have certainly been a dead Varus. In this case, discretion, better value there, and they're going to look for Wonder.
All right, Wonder's got flash available to him. He's going to be able to dash over the wall for now. Being collapsed on by all 5 members of RNG. The Twilight Shroud will buy some time. Now Wonder's going to need to get over the wall. That summoner spell used. While that's going on, Yankos are picking a fight. Wonder finds Ming. Perks gets Uzi. And just like that, who baited whom?
So I thought this is going to be exactly what we talked about.
Huge.
RNG with the globals were going to try and attack one of the side lanes, but Wonder with the fancy feet escapes from that situation. G2 collapse on 2 members mid. They kill both Uzi and Ming and secure mid-tower. Fantastic response from G2.
They're going to get 2 towers off this because Hjarnan was pushing on the top side. This is massive for G2 there as Perks is able to essentially corral Uzi into the fleeing Wonder. He picks up a kill on the way out and says, thank you very much.
Do you believe? That is the question.
I thought we had quick shot, not free
towers have been picked
They're
up.
infecting each other.
And G2 Esports are saying and throwing down a gauntlet to prove themselves and rise to the challenge of RNG.
So here we see Xiaohu with the teleport, with the Shen, with the Xin Zhao. They're thinking, we can get the collapse. And now Uzi, he's curing a ward. He thinks he's fine. He gets stunned up into the double knockup. And then just the collapse from only 2 members of G2 finds himself a quick kill. Now, I think this was greedy from Perks. He didn't need to flash that kill. Wonder was like, bro, I've got this. But in the end, both solo laners find a kill each. And now G2, they actually sit with the gold lead as we approach the 20-minute mark.
Yeah, I mean, there's no better feeling than that as Wonder. You escape a TP gank, and a 5% HP Rakan just hops on you. You're like, well, okay, thank you.
And remember that when RNG lost in the group stages, it is when the overall gold was even or they were slightly behind coming into the mid game. And G2 so far have controlled the early snowball that Uzi and Ming tried to develop.
And of course, both Cloud9 and Vitality pushed RNG by being proactive, by forcing skirmishes or playing into RNG, not allowing their opponents to dictate the tempo. Let's see what G2 can do. They've got much more of an open map. They've got themselves big item spikes. Hyonin is still down. Despite G2 being marginally ahead on gold, he is behind Uzi by 1,000 gold, but that is made up for by the fact that Akali and Irelia are doing so well.
And that's just off of the turret gold. When you look at the farm, he's really not that far behind. He has gotten a kill for himself as well. So certainly all the time that G2 spent attacking them around the mid lane, Hjarnen's free farming top, he kills a turret of his own. That bought so much time and really got him back into the game. And G2 are now set up in a spot where they really can get the split push going, where they really can have this strong three-man squad, and it becomes more difficult for RNG to force the issue.
And the one thing that I will say about Hjarnen that he is very good at is because he so regularly plays in these 1-3-1s, he has a very good awareness of where he should be on the map. He knows how to push, he knows how to use the pressure that his team is generating for him, and if he hasn't fallen too far behind and the enemy bot lane is snowballing out of control, he and Wadid are very smart about keeping mid lane under control to allow his side laners to do what they do so well.
Well, how long can they hold onto their mid-outer turret? So far, G2 have the tower lead, and RNG are starting to put pressure. We saw Xiaohu, he shoved in top, went all the way to inner turret. Let Me has just caught that bottom lane as we saw the tower falling. And we enter this mid-game phase. It's 20 minutes on the clock with no clear advantage for either team yet. The next few minutes of play can be very, very influential. The piercing arrow will help out. But look, that's just a lot of damage down. G2 doesn't have the numbers to defend that push.
They didn't, but at least, you know, again, you compare this to the last game. Perkz is already approaching the tier 2 top. They have more pressure on the side lanes, and they have the ability to at least hang on to these turrets and, you know, slow it down, which is going to force RNG to reset, which is going to allow G2 to have more time, and they're looking to just repeat the cycle over and over and over.
Yeah, look at the pressure top. Perkz was able to shove that in, get a couple of wards in the uppermost quadrant of the jungle. And G2 are going into this mid-game with a very real, very fighting chance to even out the series.
So this is a very different game to what we saw last time. Largely because in game 1, RNG, after having a very strong 2v2 in the bot side, took an early tower, and they translated that lead that the duo generated all across the map. And they just kept pushing and pushing and pushing until they found that team fight against G2, which they then snowballed into a Baron. This time around, G2's solo laners are much stronger. RNG can't just as conveniently threaten a team fight, because not only can the Akali and Irelia offer a huge amount more in these fights, especially with this squishier comp from RNG, but in a side lane, no one can really deal with the 1v1 that G2 have built up for themselves.
They certainly can't, but I do think for RNG, 2 items on your mid laner, 2 items on your AD carry. This is, again, where you try to force a fight. And RNG, I would say, is the best team in the world at fighting around their power spikes. They're so good at finding these windows of opportunity where they are at their strongest, and I would say this is one of them.
And of course, they've been tested time and time again. We talked a little bit about how this is the year of the LPL. Invictus Gaming have qualified for the semifinals and are waiting for another rematch with RNG if RNG can advance. And of course, this is what We'll Never Give Up are trying to do. Try to get 3 teams potentially into the semifinals here at Worlds.
Yeah, and I mean, RNG would be feeling very good about that potential finals, semifinals rather, having beaten IG twice in best of 5s this year in the LPL. It has been that somewhat inevitable feeling for RNG as they are just building up more and more momentum, winning Spring, winning MSI, winning Rift Rivals, winning Summer. Now here we are, and G2 is looking to put a halt to it.
And over in China, over in the LPL, that's the Golden Road, winning every single event throughout the year. Frostgren talked about it in that feature about Uzi earlier today, and this team, with this roster, are closer than they've ever been. Now, of course, they still need to get through G2 Esports, and at 22 minutes, the second time they siege that mid-outer, they get it down to 5% HP. The next wave, if they stick with it, should be enough. But we start to pay attention to Baron, we start to pay attention to the mini-map. I don't think Vision is the deepest for either team, so we need to see a proactive forward-moving play. Veris, which direction do you think is going to come from as Perkz goes a little bit hunting? The Vanguard's edge misses, the Chain of Corruption misses, It's a comedy of errors as G2 cannot land a skill shot. Xiaohu walks away with his life. He manages to self-pass the ultimate, and now Wadid, he needs to run away. He flashed forward, remember, and is the target on the front line. Wonder's pulling away Let Me as Wadid gets taken out by Uzi. G2 bit off way more than they could chew.
And they didn't need to force a play like that. They overcommit very heavily, expending a lot of their ultimates, and they will be lucky if all they lose is just their support's life, because that was multiple missed ultimates. And he's already under the turret. When you miss the Verisalt, when you miss, you know, a lot of those abilities, you need to say, okay, that sucks, but let's back off, let's reset. We're spreading the map, we're already doing very well.
That was really bad, quick shot. That was like really bad. Like, you know, you just asked what do these teams want to do, and I was gonna say
Not that.
Yeah, I was gonna say RNG. They're the ones that kind of need to force a fight, or they need to be the ones to try and make a play happen. One of the ways in which they could have done that was like start to control the river a little bit more. They have the Shen off on a side lane, but here it's actually G2, and I understand the idea, right? Attack one of the side lanes with the Tahm Kench ultimate, bring someone in. You have the mid priority, and so I think this play in essence is fine. And if they land everything, they find a kill onto Xiaohu. Everything looks good. They get full this vision control.
That didn't
Yay
happen.
for G2. They missed everything, and then they tried to dive, and RNG were like, yeah, no, you're not allowed to do that, and they very quickly punished them.
I mean, it was a great initial play there by Xiaohu, flashing the ultimate out of perks, but then the stun misses, the Verisalt misses, everything kind of falling apart there for G2, though. Luckily for them, still ahead. It's only a support death. It is certainly not a death blow by any means. We have RNG now grouping around objectives, trying to get G2 to come to them.
Yeah, I'm looking at the flashes. I mean, Perks and Wadid committed his, but with Wadid having the Unsealed Spellbook, he swapped that away to a Ghost. So 25 minutes, RNG will secure their second break. They are only 1,000 gold down. And they're going to be sitting very comfortably. It was quite funny because leading up to that fight, Azal, you'd mentioned how RNG are one of the best teams at fighting with power spikes. Just before that fight broke out, Hyonan picked up the Rage Blade. Good attempt, failed execution. And I'm going to go back to the same question. Let's talk about, like, what are the steps these teams need to do for G2? It's get vision, set up a 1-3-1, have pushing waves, and then either look to threaten inner turret or potentially Baron.
No, you do what they just did. You attack the sides, because the thing about Tahm Kench ulti, I think the best example is when they played against Flash Wars and they used the Nocturne ultimate to kind of come down a lane and find a pick. You can do a very similar thing with Tahm Kench, but to do that, you need to have vision control and you need to have mid lane priority. Now, in order to generate that, you have to have pressure on the side lanes. So what you'll see from G2 is Wonder will push up, Perks will push up, Wonder will maybe start roaming up to mid, and this is the kind of situation where you'll see if Let Me was in the lane, they will look to try and use a Tahm Kench ultimate to find a collapse, find a pick, and then a 4v5, then they can maybe look for a team fight. But for RNG, the problem is it's going to get harder and harder because these side lanes are going to get more difficult to kill. So the windows with which they have to kind of force a fight and the windows where they'll even have the pressure to do that are becoming shorter and shorter.
I'd also caution for G2 attacking away from the global. If you attack someone other than the Shen, it becomes very easy for RNG to have a second member there. If that is a play towards the Shen, it may have a better chance of working out. And you know, as you were just pointing out, Uzi now on 3 items, hits that power spike. This is, again, another opportunity where they are at an extremely strong point. The Phantom Dancer is looking to duel.
All right, Wonder's going to get blown up before he can do anything.
They're going to Baron.
He had Flash, he had Hourglass, and he had no time to use it. Touching on the 3-item Uzi, he's got a Phantom Dancer as his third pickup. I love that when you consider Akali and Irelia are going to be jumping onto him, and RNG are the ones that find the pick and get control.
And this is what we didn't get the chance to talk about, is RNG punishing the rotations from the side of G2 as they find that pick, and now Carth's found Perks.
All right, Stand United has been channeled onto Carsa. The Vanguard's Edge comes out, lots of dashing in and out, and Perks stays alive just long enough for Jankos to get there. Chain of Corruption this time round starts to spread on the RNG members, and Jankos is left for dead. Takes the blast gun out to safety as a flawless
Uzi,
gets the
they're
studs.
winning this!
Jankos, how did you find Uzi? Uzi, why were you face-checking? RNG are now running for their lives as Xiaohu is low. A Devour from Wadid buys some time. G2 are low as well. These teams are fighting on a knife's edge. Wonder will complete the teleport, and RNG sense impending doom. Let Me looks for the re-engage as Xiaohu is dropped to the back line. Wonder's looking for Casa, and Ming is running for his life. Let Me's down. RNG are down, and G2 Ace Royal never give up.
And that was all off the back of beautiful play from Perks. In a 1 versus 5, he buys enough time for the rest of G2 to turn around an overcommitted RNG. It will likely be a Baron as well. Quick shot. This is not how I was expecting this game to unfold, but G2 come out on top.
No, you think that is going to be the fight that wins the game for RNG? It's a 5v4 from them. A clean pick on Wonder over to Baron, and you think Perks is surely gonna die here. In our Acer Predator replay, we see the Shen ultimate coming through. They're looking for Perks, but he's able to actually dodge out and avoid a lot of the damage with his cleanse. Kiting back to his team, his Sterix is buying a lot of time, and then Uzi just walks straight into that Varus ultimate, gets found, and still from here, it looks like they could have backed off, but Uzi goes over the wall by himself, face checks straight in and gives up his life.
And that was a good punish from G2, but a big mistake from Uzi as well. At this point, RNG are kind of dancing in and out. They don't have an AD carry. They need to disengage, but the teleport is available for Wonder. He comes in from behind, and then with all of his abilities up, he's ready to clean up the fight.
And this is the best choice for RNG, seeing the TP come in. Try to turn and win the 4v3, 4v4 from that situation, because you cannot run back into Wonder. It'll just be a meat grinder there. But G2, get an ace, get a Baron, and what an incredible turnaround.
4,000 gold lead in a 1-3-1 composition. And look at the damage difference. That is Hyonin at 5,100 for the team fight versus the 1,000 of Uzi. And this will be a little bit of a replay as Wonder's going to be able to get the Shroud down. Casa coming up behind Xiaohu. The Wonder escapes with his life. And look at the minimap. G2 have already taken the inner turret.
This is the 1-3-1, ladies and gentlemen. G2, they're not just pushing one lane, they're pushing multiple. And as RNG send 4 members to the bot side of the map, G2 are quick to secure themselves 2 towers.
Yeah, this gold lead is just exploding, and now for RNG, they're being sieged in the base. They're almost forced into an engage here, but G2 is setting this up very, very well. You have Wonder in the mid lane, pushing in the waves. We'll see if RNG can force us back or find that engage.
All right, I'm keeping my eyes on the positioning. RNG group towards this top inner turret as Wonder is waiting for those minions to just conga line their way to the mid turret. There's a minute and a half on Baron. And the inhibitor turret in the top lane is chunked down very low for G2. Got to be a little careful they don't get jumped on. The Shen, the Lissandra, the Zen, because when an engage happens, it is quick, it is efficient, and RNG can shut down G2.
Now, G2 ideally would like to send someone bot to clear that one out, but they don't have a teleport anywhere else on that roster. Now, they're just going to try and set up the kind of 1-4 or, just push these 2 lanes in for now, utilize the Baron buff as much as possible. You have the Varus with pretty good range, staying outside of Uzi, and it's Let Me that you just have to be careful of as Hyonin gets close to the tower.
All right, Wonder's going to be back on that mid lane. RNG looking for some sort of initiation. Casa will find a 3-talent strike onto Perks. Xiaohu, I was holding my breath for that glacial path. He chose not to follow it up. There is an Infernal Drake waiting in the pit to be secured. There is a minion wave pushing towards G2 Esports, and they have not yet cracked open the base.
A small thing here, note how Hyonin isn't pushing the wave because he's waiting for mid to hit the tower at the same time. They're trying to divide RNG so that they can't just immediately force a fight, but Hyonin's so close.
Oh, look at that! That's what happens when ultimates connect. Chain of Corruption as well as the Rankos barrel. They find a pick onto Ming. Now Casa and Xiaohu are jumping under Perks. Perks throws down the stopwatch, stays alive for a few seconds longer, flashes out to safety. The top inhibitor turret is secured as Casa and Xiaohu are like, screw the base, we want the kills, mates. They're chasing Wonder and Perks. This feels personal. Wonder will have some support as Hyonin comes in with the Abyssal Void. Xiaohu escapes with his life for now, and now Casa will get taken down. Hyonin is on a rampage. The inhibitor fell. Another inhibitor turret's going down.
The G2 may just continue to push here. They're going to get a second inhibitor for sure. 40 seconds on Karsa, so they'll retreat to the Infernal Dragon. They have taken full control of the game.
And expectations are once again being defied. G2 are playing to their style. They're allowing RNG no opportunities to come back into this game. 2 inhibitors are down as G2 sit 9,000 gold over the MSI champion.
But we have seen RNG turn around games. We have seen them make the miracle happen. So G2 need to continue playing smart. Spend your gold. Don't necessarily risk this over an Infernal Dragon. Set up the 1-3-1. 2 inhibitors are down. Play it slow. Close out this game.
G2 will just back away, and we'll get to see a replay of how this happened again. Note how the map is being divided right now. 3 versus 3 here, and this is great for G2. A good ultimate onto Ming, combined with the ultimate from Yanko, sets up for a quick pick. And then Karsa and Xiaohu are like, all right, let's get something back here. Perks has overstepped. He buys so much time with the damage reduction on the W, combined with the stopwatch, and he then goes in. Who expects him to go in? He then gets the shield from the Sterix to dive out, and then the 2v2, Akali's like, yeah, I think I can take this, and then all kinds of crazy stuff happens.
Yeah, I mean, they're able to buy so much time with the Shroud, with the double stopwatch, with the Sterix gauge, and the all-important Tahm Kench ultimate brings in reinforcements here, allowing G2 to win that fight.
Well, there's no way Zakali and Irelia will be allowed through the draft in the next game by RNG. At least I don't anticipate that to be true. And the gold graph, you can see the scale. Yes, RNG had a lead of around 1.4k at some point. It is now 9.7 thousand gold in favor of G2 Esports, a team wasn't even expected to be here. A team that had to take down Schalke 04 in the regional qualifier gauntlet and stepped up and continues to step up against every threat in their way.
Now, we have to remember that the Baron was secured after G2 found an impressive fight after Wonder got picked off. You could say on paper, G2 shouldn't have secured that Baron. However, the Baron now spawns in less than a minute.
All right, Ming's going to be jumping back in. Uzi's the target. Stand United's being channeled down, but Ming will go down. Wonder's on a killing spree as Karsa is caught amongst G2 Esports. Uzi is killed in the back end as Wonder is flying through the map. And it's Hyonin that's got himself another kill, and Perks jumps on the back end with the Vanguard's edge. Inhibitor is exposed, the Nexus turrets are falling, and G2 Esports punch back, defying all odds, and prove they can go toe-to-toe with RNG, 1-1 in the series.
And I was just about to talk about how the setup for Baron was going to be really important for G2, and they go, you know what? Forget it, let's just fight it. They stop the engage from Ming, they end up turning it around, they end up finding a big victory over RNG, and for me, this is a surprise because I thought the RNG would let Heimerdinger through, and that is what would allow